All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks to anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And so I see we have Anthony, Danny, Lanswath, and Vishal and Lantern Tails in here so far. So thanks so much, everyone. And I see Anthony says, hey, man, hope you had a nice weekend. Cool spots this weekend were a Plymouth Prowler and a Dodge Durango Hellcat. Very nice spots, especially the Prowler is always fun to see. I haven't seen one of those myself in a while, actually. And definitely now with the cars starting to go into hibernation as we get a little bit colder here. Probably won't see one for a while, but glad you saw one there and still seeing some good cars out there. And Danny's saying, hello, my last band camp was today. Our competitive season is done. Drove Monday through Saturday. Bolt had to go into the dealer this past Thursday due to a TPMS issue. Traverse is going in this Thursday. The CEL has been in my Traverse for 3 weeks, and it's annoying my dad. Rare spot, a Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross Rally Art. Interesting. That's cool. And sorry to hear about the issues there with the Bolt. Hopefully the TPMS thing's easy. I know sometimes even the little batteries that power the TPMS sensors can sometimes go bad in the wheels. Hopefully it's just something minor and Traverse. Hopefully they get that sorted out quickly. And Lancelot says, good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a great week. You as well, Lancelot. He says, my spots are a white Hummer EV and a black Raptor R. Very nice. And Danny says, the check engine light came on after my mom got it filled up with gas 3 weeks ago. My dad thought it was bad gas, so he put higher octane in it, and that did nothing. So we've been living with it. It has no gas cap, so I talked too much already. I bawled my eyes out at last Friday night's football because it was senior night, and I was one of those seniors, and I was crying so much. Everyone said they were going to miss me. Have done marching band for 5 years, so it was since 8th grade. I'm done talking. I did too much. I pulled him out. All good. Yeah, no, I mean that's crazy, and at least you know that you've been a good friend and a good teammate there with the band and all that. If everyone's going to miss you, that's always nice to hear. And so yeah, it's one of those things. It's a transition period, and still lots of better and bigger things ahead, I'm sure. And Vishal says, hey, all my spots are a McLaren 720S and a second gen Elantra. I haven't seen one of those in maybe 15 years. It was in mint condition too. Wow, that is rare. Yeah, second gen Elantras, I remember, they used to be so common, but yeah, I don't really see, they're very rare. I feel like I've seen one in the past year or two, but yeah, they are very, very rare. The first gen is basically extinct, I feel like, at this point, but second gen, yeah, they're really rare. And they were good cars. I knew someone who had a second gen back in high school, and they already had over 100,000 miles on that thing way back when, and were just driving it like crazy and loved it and had a blast with it. So that's a cool spot. And let me see. So Danny says, I also saw a mint, and I mean mint. It had no scratches, dings, or paint chips. It was a 96 Super Impreza 2.5 RS in Cardinal Red. Looked up the paint color. Had yellow fog lights. That was the only mod. That's awesome. Very impressive. And my spot here, one of the oddballs, I saw a few other various things because I was driving the other way on the highway whenever there was a Cars and Coffee that was starting soon nearby. So in the oncoming or the opposite side of the highway, there was like a GT3 RS. There was what else did I see? I think I saw a couple of different Porsches and other like various sports cars. But the real oddball is just yesterday, actually, in the afternoon, I saw an Accord. It was a second gen Accord wagon. Really like bulbous in the back, but still had the very slender headlights in the front there. And it looked like it was in really nice shape, just a normal person still just driving it, and not any kind of special preservation apparent. It was just someone using it like a regular car, and I'm like, that thing's got to be really rare. So that was kind of a fun spot. And Will from San Diego, thanks for stopping by. And Luke says, my interesting spots this week were a Toyota RAV4s, Honda CR-Vs, and Nissan Rogues. Nice. So I guess nothing too interesting there, but if you were in Phoenix this week, you would have seen all of us driving through with our 2026 RAV4s, because there was a whole bundle of us. I'm sure some people were, being confused. There was actually a dad and his kid who were driving by in like a Ford Super Duty or something that like the kid like turned and like watched as they passed me, like staring at the car. And I'm like, I'm just in a RAV4, but maybe they're really big Toyota fans or something. I have no idea why this kid was gawking at a 2026 RAV4, but he was. I mean, it's a good looking vehicle in my opinion, but just that was the other funny little instance out there on the road. But let me see. Rodrigo says, "Hi Matt, have you ever driven a first gen Touareg V8? Getting one as my secondary car in beater." I don't think I have. I've experienced Touaregs a long time ago because occasionally we get them as a trade-in at the BMW Audi Porsche dealer that I worked at back in high school and college. But I mean, this would have been 2007 to 2011. And even then, I had driven Touaregs. I can't recall exactly which kind. I don't think I ever did the cool W12 one or anything, but I think I think I've driven a V8 one. I mean, that generation again, because it was based on the same thing as Cayenne and all that. Um, I mean, I have like a recollection of what it was like. I mean, they're very sturdy feeling vehicles, kind of heavy feeling, at least back then they were. But and they had some electrical gremlins from what I recall as well, even back then. But it'd be a cool thing, I'm sure. I've heard they're great tow rigs. If you want to hear more about tow rigs, my buddy Humble Mechanic has a YouTube channel, does a bunch of Volkswagen stuff. He's had a tow rig for a while. I think his is the V8. I would assume it is, but I'm not totally sure. But I'm pretty sure he's pretty happy with his. I haven't watched a ton of the coverage, but I don't think I've seen any negative stuff about it necessarily from him at least, but definitely check out his channel. Great guy, especially if you're trying to get into Volkswagens. I mean, he's an actual former mechanic of Volkswagens, knows them in and out. So he'd be a much better person to ask thoughts on that. But again, there should be already a wealth of information on his channel in addition to, any further insight you might need. But hopefully that'll give you a good head start there. And for anything like that, if you're looking for more owner impressions or in-depth impressions on, reliability and stuff, going to, a subreddit, forum, Facebook page, things like that are always the best way to get info on, vehicles from actual people that have lived with them and put, 100,000 miles on them and all that stuff. But congrats if you do end up getting one. That's going to be a really cool, especially as a secondary car, beater kind of thing. Should be pretty cool for the wintertime and stuff. And Jazz says hi, and he says, I saw a Mitsubishi Diamante. Very nice. So that is another very rare one. I feel like all of those have been eaten alive by rust at this point. But glad you saw one. That's cool. Raphael, thanks for stopping by. And Danny says, Subaru was the first car manufacturer to put a diesel engine with a CVT. In the 2010, Subaru offered the Outback with a 2-liter diesel flat 4 with a CVT in Australia. Yeah, I remember the diesel for the Outback. And I mean, that was back when diesel was still well regarded. And yeah, diesel's still so great. It's a shame that ended up getting thrown under the bus there because of the cheating emissions and stuff, because there's still good technology and you could still have them run well and just maybe be a little less efficient, but they were still so far ahead of gas as far as efficiency. But anyway, Kraken says, hey Matt, had a fun weekend, went to that boat launch and got some great pictures. That's awesome. I'm glad the recommendation helped you there, and I hope you enjoyed your time here in Pittsburgh. And yeah, thanks so much for visiting the city. I hope you guys all had a great time. And Jesse's saying, hey, Matt, do you think the Nissan Z doesn't get enough credit? There seems to be some reasonable deals out there, and the Turbo V6 is no slouch. I think that Z, it comes down to the deal that you get. If it's at the right price, I mean, anything really at the right price can become a whole lot more desirable and, better. My initial complaint, if you watch my review of the Z, my biggest complaint was that you could just get a Supra for basically the same price, and the Supra was a far better sports car, in my opinion. I think the Z is still, a slightly better Grand Tourer. My main complaints were the interior, the way they phoned it in with the carryover parts on the inside, and a lot of the platform and everything being carryover as well. And yet it wasn't priced at a bargain price. That was kind of my problem with it. Now, if you're seeing some deals, like you said, and you're getting some discounts on that, then that changes the equation, and it comes down to, again, what your other options are that you're open to and what they're priced at, what those dealers are willing to do as far as discounts for those other vehicles. and that will kind of give you, the right answer for you. But in a vacuum, I like C. Again, I think I wish they would have done more to differentiate it from 370, but I really like the styling. It still drives very well, although Nismo was a disappointment to me, but I'm still convinced I just had some really somehow messed up tires on the one that I had. I need to revisit Nismo, but regular Z is great. Not the best. Again, I think that it's not my favorite manual transmission. It's it's again, it just feels a little dated because of the platform being a little dated and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you get a 400 horsepower twin turbo V6 with mod potential. You get some solid mechanicals, and because there's a lot of carryover, you have a lot of known quantities as far as some of those parts, and probably some decent aftermarket support already, especially now that's been out a few years. But yeah, it all comes down to the price. I don't even know what they're going for used, but I do know that some dealers are finally, not pricing them like they were GTRs. And so if you can get a good deal on one, I think it could make a lot of sense. Again, for me, it would have to still be cheaper than Mustang GT. It would have to be cheaper than Supra by a significant margin because of the performance you're leaving on the table between that and the amazing tuning potential of the B58 and the Supra. But as long as again the price is right, that's really all it comes down to. Then it could be definitely worth considering. And TFI says, Matt, do you have a collection of fragrance? Just picked up Nautica Voyage and CK1 that was on sale at my local pharmacy. Nice. So I do have a few. I used to wear cologne a lot more, and I don't much anymore. Every once in a while I will. So I have a couple. I have most of them have been gifted to me. I have an old Burberry one that's probably 15 years old that I just always like the smell of it. Just the regular Burberry cologne. There's a Lacoste one that was gifted to me that I really liked. And my favorite one though, which it actually is a really good scent, but it's also the perk of it being James Bond. It's the regular 007 fragrance. They've done a few of them, but this is the regular one, like the black box. Man, I wish I had like Amazon links or something to get credit for the shout outs here, but it's 007. It has like the cool little like twist thing, and the fragrance, whatever the puffer thing's called, that pops up whenever you twist it. So it looks like a little bit of a spy thing kind of in a way. But it's actually a really good scent, and I get compliments every once in a while whenever I do wear it. So that's actually probably my favorite one of the bunch. I think those are the only three that I have. I really wanted to try and like Davidoff Cool Water back whenever Paul Walker was doing advertisements for it, if you remember that, and a long time ago now. But I never loved the scent of that. And I know it's one of the classic ones that's been around forever, but for me it was always the Burberry, the Lacoste, or the 007 are my favorites. I've never tried those others. It's something I don't have too much interest in, but yeah, it's fun to dabble with every once in a while. And Steven, the Corvette guy, says, my dad has made a list or a following list to look at for his next car. So including the Kia EV3 and Nissan Leaf and Toyota CHR EV, as well as a Chevy Bolt and the Volvo EX30 and maybe an Audi Q4 e-tron. So that's another one where it'll all come down to the deals on those. If you are looking for ones to nix. I mean, we still don't know all the info on Bolt, but I'm pretty underwhelmed at the surface with Bolt just being a carryover of the old one, whenever Leaf seems very nice, and that is an actual new generation. It's a more substantial vehicle than the Bolt, which is still just, a little hatchback. And there's all the other competitors like you just listed there. And so it's going to come down to, again, what the deals are on those, especially now that we've, missed the window for the tax credits here. I mean, some companies are still pushing pretty hard. I think also the thing to keep in mind, if your dad is looking for a good deal, then don't go for something that's super fresh and new. Go for something that's selling poorly if you actually like it. Sometimes things sell poorly because they're not the best, but if it's something that you like and it's selling poorly, that's going to really be your ticket to leverage with dealers. Like Kia EV3, I don't even know when that's coming. I'm guessing that's sometime next year. obviously sometime next year for sure. Now, how late in the next year, I don't know, but that's going to be fresh whenever it comes out. Dealers are probably not going to be super motivated to get rid of them, even if they are priced really well. You're going to probably be able to get a better deal on a Nissan Leaf by that point. Now, if you're looking right now, Leaf is fresh, CHR, is obviously fresh and all that. So, and that's not even out yet. Still, I think that's not coming till early next year too. But so from the list there right now, I don't know how hot EX30 is selling, but I'd say you'll probably get the best deal right now on Q4 e-tron, because those never really did super well, and Audi seems motivated to get rid of the last few that are out there. So, and then again, if we're talking, yeah, because I'm guessing you're talking new for all of these, but I haven't driven Q4 e-tron, so I can't say how good that one is. I love the EX30. If you watch my review on that, if you can get a good deal on one of those and you can live with the quirks of it, that one's really, really cool. And I'm optimistic for Leaf. I will have a review of Leaf coming here probably around Thanksgiving time, maybe slightly later, because I'm starting to get booked up with more trips. It's like an avalanche of invites this week, which is a good problem to have. But I'm going to be doing less used reviews here in the next month or two, because I'm just going to have basically every upload slot filled with either some new thing or a press car. But I still am committed to the used, and I'm going to have hopefully a really sweet used car to post. Not this week, because this next week is going to be dominated by RAV4 videos, but the following week. I'm hoping I found a unicorn. I hope that it doesn't get sold before I can get to it. But I'm excited to hopefully do that. So that's gonna be a really cool used car, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then probably gonna be mostly new cars until at least December. But again, obviously the used is still very near and dear to my heart, and I want to do as many as I can. And I may bump some of the new stuff if some real, awesome used stuff comes in that I can't, afford to miss. Then I might work some more in. But as of right now, it's starting to pack in for the rest of the year with with the upload schedule here. And let me see. So hopefully it helps you a little bit, though, Stephen. I will have thoughts on Leaf here soon. And again, probably early next year for CHR is my guess. But let me see. Raphael says, more of a fun sighting this week. I was behind a yellow Kia Stinger with an exhaust. It sounded excellent. That's cool. Yeah, the yellow ones are rare. I can't remember what the special edition of that one was called. Maybe was it the I don't remember, some kind of edition, but that's cool. That's awesome. And Lancelot, by the way, sorry I missed it earlier, but thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate it. Happy to see. I think mostly some new faces able to get that, including Stephen Miller. Thankfully, Stephen Miller Jr. So not the Stephen Miller that we hear about very often in the news. So that's a relief. But anyway, thanks so much, Lancelot, for gifting those. And let me see here. So Luke says, my brother had a 2003 Elantra he bought for $1,200 in 2011 with 200,000 miles. He kept it until 2021 when it had 368,000. Wow, that is like the best return on investment. There's got to be some kind of record. I mean, I hope he didn't spend too much on maintenance. But if that's just like he spent $1,200 and just did oil changes and like regular routine stuff over the next 10 years, I mean, you get 168,000 miles out of a car for $1,200. That's got to rank up there pretty highly as one of the top 100 return on investment car purchases, at least of the past decade. That's wild, man. Well, there you go. There's a prime example of an Elantra that does go the distance, despite all the naysayers that love to talk smack on the Korean cars. Again, with the right care, they're capable. They really are. I wholeheartedly believe that, and that's why I recommend Hyundais and Kias, because they are really good. You hear some bad stuff sometimes, but I think it really comes down to maintenance a lot of times. And thanks so much for all the love, everyone, there with the emojis too. And Jazz says Lexus will deliver only 250 vehicle of the model LS500 for 2026. Do you think they will sell them all easily? Probably fairly easily. I'd have to look at how many they actually sell in a normal year. Now, obviously, you'll have a little bit of people rushing out to buy the last model year, but LS500 has not been a super hot seller. it's never been, really the top sale at anything. So, um, I don't know. That one might be kind of hard to say, but I mean, LS500 seems great. I did a quick drive, and I did actually have one, I think, for a week a long time ago. But I mean, it's super nice. Maybe it'd be fun to revisit here at the end. We'll see if they have any in the press fleet or anything. But yeah, it's a sad end for the LS there. And Kraken says my spot of the week was a Veloster N thing. Seemingly had a wide body on it because the rear end was thick. Nice. That's cool. It's cool you saw that maybe around here somewhere, or maybe this is at the end meet you were at. That's cool. And Marian says, hi, Matt. It's my birthday today. I turned 19. Well, happy birthday. I hope you had a great one, and congrats on your final year of your teens. I hope you enjoy it to the max here, and hope it brings you that much closer to getting Durango Hellcat someday. And Jazz says the price is 99 grand for the LS500. I mean, compared to the others out there, that's not bad. All the other Luxo barges, especially from the Europeans, are way over that for the most part. So not too bad in my opinion, relatively speaking. And Outside Center says, hey Matt, I spotted an Audi 100 sedan, the real boxy 5-cylinder predecessor to the A6. Old lady driving it, and it had collector plates, really clean. That's awesome. Well, at least I'm glad she got the collector plates, so she's saving on insurance and all that. But wow, that's impressive to see. I love it, especially whenever, it's not always a guarantee, but if it's an older person, then a lot of times that means like they've had it a long time and they're just sticking with their car. And I love that. I love hearing those kinds of stories. It's so fun to hear about people that stick with their car for a long time. And Danny says, is it just me or is the stream constantly buffering? Hopefully it's working okay here. Let me check the health of the stream to make sure that it's okay on my end here. Seems like it's doing okay. But let me know, everyone, if there are any issues here. So maybe it's just you, Danny. Lantern Tail says, for the 86 Miata collaboration, what would you want the car to be and what would you not want the next gen car to have? So, I still am not entirely convinced that that's truly happening. If it is, though, I think that even though Toyota is going to be the one bankrolling it, and Toyota is going to be, obviously the much larger fish in that, pond, Mazda is extremely protective of Miata. So I would say any speculation you're hearing about that car, the credibility would come in if it's basically they're developing Miata first, the way Mazda wants to do it, and then Toyota adapts that for their uses. Because that's and that could, kind of Subaru did engineer the BRZ in 86 primarily, and Toyota again went back and did tweaks to make it their own, but like Subaru did the lion's share of the engineering there, which is why it's Subaru powered and all that. And so I think, for that vehicle, again, if they're going to do a collaboration again, I think Toyota is going to kind of let Mazda take the wheel on that. And so, so then basically we start with, what do we know about Miata? What are the core tenets of that car that will not be changed because they are extremely protective of that car? It's going to be super light. And I think you could see, they're not going to want to make it bigger. And they're also not going to want to do any more electrification than they absolutely have to do. I think there was rumors of GR86 going hybrid for this new gen. I think obviously manual is very important for Miata, very high take rate for manual, and for GR86 for that matter. So, if they do hybridization, I'm assuming Mazda is going to want to push for mild hybrid, so extended stop start, and that's about it. But again, this is a car. Look at how long NDs lasted. I mean, it came out 2016, right? And we got 2026 is coming out, so 10 years with nothing new coming in the imminent future here. So, you could say, oh, well, we don't have to worry about emissions because, we got a get out of jail free card for the next, few years here in America, which obviously is very, short-sighted because, again, this car is going to have to be able to live into probably the late 2030s. What kind of world will we be dealing with then? And even if you ignore America and who knows what the hell happens here, but, you talk about Europe and Asia and, everyone else and them pushing to still improve emissions, still electrifying things. Some of these countries still trying to aim for 2035 as a cutoff for new gas sales. Mazda's got to factor all that stuff in while still balancing, keeping this thing under, under 3,000 pounds and, probably well under that. That's a very tall order. But I don't think Toyota is going to have very much influence, if at all. Again, assuming this is actually happening. But I would say, it would probably launch with mild hybrid. I think you could see an NE2 or whatever, like the refresh of that going heavier with the hybrid once they need to. And then I think they would probably just plan on sunsetting the car in the few places if they do actually stick to the 2035 cutoff. Then they drop out of those markets, like we saw. GRD6 and BRZ dropped out of many of the European markets once emissions regulations got stricter and safety and the cybersecurity regulations all that got stricter. You saw a lot of these cars drop out. But I think at the end of the day, I'm expecting, if that happens with the collaboration, it's going to be smaller than the current GR86 and BRZ are. It's going to be lighter. The rumors have suggested that it will get a backseat for the Subaru and Toyota, or for the Toyota version. I think Subaru's out of it. So, but for the Toyota version, it sounds like it may still retain a backseat, or they'd like to do that. But again, if it's going to be Miata size, and I doubt they're going to do more than an inch or two bigger than current Miata, I don't know if they can actually put a backseat in it. But I really expect it to just morph into a Miata with different styling. So really, I guess, the more we've seen this before, with Mazda did this with Fiat. And what did you see? Fiat got the Miata and they just, lengthened it out, added, different things here and there, put, some different seats in, put their own motor in. There could be that same kind of thing. So basically, swap the Fiat badge for a Toyota badge, and that can kind of give you an idea. And maybe that's going to be part of the differentiation. Maybe the Mazda version, goes with no hybrid, and the Toyota version adds a hybrid in or something. But I'm assuming, take a Miata, put longer front end, longer back end, try and differentiate, try and make it so that it's not quite as big of a leap in the showroom for the person that's coming out of, current Gen GR86 or BRZ going into the new Toyota one. If it's too small, those people probably would have already bought a Miata RF if they were fine with the size. I think also you'll probably see it grow taller, because that's a frequent complaint with Miata, is people can't fit. And obviously Miata would like to, fix that and not leave those people behind. But again, they will not compromise on the size and just the weight. So, they engineered that car for Japan. And if it works for the rest of the world, great. But that car is for the Japanese. And so, you could see Toyota having a little more of a global eye with it and saying, okay, let's try and, do a double bubble roof, or do some kind of extra thing to, buy us some extra headroom here. Just all my spitball ideas off the top of my head. But that's kind of where I see it going. But yeah, from the conversations I've had and the stuff that I've heard and read and seen from others and their reporting as well, Mazda will not, they got an iron grip on Miata and what Miata is and what Miata should be. Now there's internal debates within Mazda about, again, how hybridized do they go? Do they just keep sticking with the current generation and try and just go electric once we have, battery tech, solid state possibly, or something that's smaller, lighter, where you have the ability to, not compromise on weight. But I think for now, dealing with the realities of current technology, for affordable sports cars, it's going to probably just be, more of the same. Again, as little change as possible, which I think is what most people want, especially sports car enthusiasts. They don't like change anyway. So I think Mazda's on the right track there. Keep it very similar. And I even when I just revisited Miata, earlier this year, does it need to change? It's kind of perfect. They got the bigger screen in there now. It's never going to really, it should never be any faster anyway. It's competitive with GR86 and BRZ anyway. So I don't envision it changing a whole lot. But again, Toyota is not going to have any leverage there, I don't think. And that's why I still think there's a decent shot that Toyota just goes it alone because they can afford to. They can afford to build it on their own. And there was some Toyota, I think a Toyota Australia executive or something, who was like, yes, we can do things on our own. We don't need partnerships. And you will see more of that in the following years. Now, whether he's talking, I mean, we got a whole variety of stuff. Is he talking about G86? Is he talking about MR2? Is he talking about Celica? Is he talking about Supra or something else even? But we got four very likely things coming at some point here in the next 10 years, hopefully. And, they got the GT3 car here that, they're doing a race street version of. That's, a sole Toyota engineered product. So, again, they have the money. They don't need to go cheap on that. So if they want to do it their way, finally, I think this is a golden opportunity for Toyota to just, go it alone, make it exactly what they want it to be. But we'll see. It's a fun thing to think about. Thanks for asking, Lantern Tales. And let me see. Let me see. So Danny had this question there I already read earlier. And let me see other questions here. So Lantern Tales also says, my friend recently got a 1998 Toyota Century V12. Wow. He got it for 20 grand. We will take it to trunk or treat meet on Friday. That's wild. Man, that's got to be super cool. I know nothing about those, but that's got to be a really impressive car. That's cool. I hope you enjoy your time in that. That's awesome. And Danny says the stream's constantly buffering. I'm sorry, I don't know why it would be messing up. Hopefully everyone else is okay. But because especially if your questions are being double posted and stuff, Danny, it might just be something on your internet connection side. I don't know. And Raphael says Matt's married at that point. Even showering is once a week, so no need for cologne. A good lifestyle. I mean, I definitely shower every day because I'm too much of a, I guess, clean freak kind of person to let myself go like that. And you gotta keep the appeal up, and you gotta keep yourself looking good. I mean, especially being on camera, like I can't afford to, even if I wanted to. I can't always look like crap because people definitely let me know it if I do in the videos. So I always got to make sure that I'm staying up to date. But no, cologne is a nice thing every once in a while. And Matt Pools says, popping into live chat to say thanks for the reviews over the years, from the Genesis Coupes to the Corvettes. Found a lot of your vids to be helpful. Well, thanks so much for stopping by, and I'm glad you found them helpful. That's that's why I do it. That's what keeps me motivated to keep trying to make this YouTube dream stay a reality. Thanks so much for watching all these years. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for stopping by. And TFI says Davidoff Cool Water is a fantastic summer fragrance. Absolutely timeless. That's next on my list. Apparently Jaguar Black is well regarded. Nice. The problem I always have with Davidoff Cool Water is it smelled too much like soap. It smelled like really soapy to me. Maybe that's just me and my nose. I don't know. But like, it felt like I was wearing shirts that I put too much soap in the laundry or something. Like that's kind of how, I mean, again, it was a classic forever and for good reason, I'm sure. Just was not good for my nose for some reason. And chat says, hey, Matt, glad to see you. Just got done with a 12-hour shift, not counting the hour-and-a-half commute round trip. That's crazy. Completely forgot what day it was. I'm sure you're a wife. Well, go relax. And thanks for stopping by though, Chad. I appreciate it. And good on you for working so hard. I remember, at the dealership, whenever I was detailing cars, sometimes 12 hours a day, and it wiped me out for sure. And even these days I'm working, usually over 12 hours every day, on the channel here. So I can relate. It's different kinds of work, I know, but putting in the hours, it can be draining for sure. So I hope we can all be able to take our foot off the gas here someday. But thanks so much for stopping by, Chad. And Theodore, thanks for stopping by too. And I'll just leave Josh's comment there because I refuse to read that out loud. Let me see. Darnell, thanks so much for a super chat. He says another thumbs up for all your hard work on your car reviews. Well, thanks so much, Darnell. I really appreciate that. And thanks for stopping by. And yeah, you guys are always awesome. So I really appreciate all the support from everyone. And like, I posted the community post here earlier this week. The Corolla Cross review is, I mean, it's not doing amazing or anything. It's not going viral, but like it's doing better than average. And that's like YouTube said, and I, posted it right there. It's because YouTube said subscribers are choosing to watch this video longer. And that is the power that you guys have. You truly have that power. And again, I know, everyone's busy, everyone's, working and doing a zillion other things. So, never do anything that, you don't feel like doing, but like, the channels that you watch the longest and the most frequent, like, that does matter. And whether it's, it matters less if it's a gigantic channel that, has way more people, but especially when you're talking about smaller channels, if, especially like super small channels, but even, channels like mine where, I'm not getting a huge amount of views per video, like, it really does make a difference every single view and how long that view lasts for. And, whether you link it with another one that you see that's interesting or whatever, like all those things, really play in, but it really comes down to view duration. YouTube wants you to be on YouTube as long as possible. And I do not condone, social media addiction or, sitting, watching videos all day or anything. So please get out and enjoy your life. There's more to life than YouTube, but the longer that you're on, the happier YouTube is with me. It's really like giving my boss a positive review of me, whenever you watch long, because it's like, wow, this video is so great that they're watching it for 20 minutes or for the whole thing or whatever, so thank you all so much for that. But I mean, that post this week shows like it's working. I know some of you have said you're going to start doing that more, and I think it's really starting to actually show. And again, it's baby steps. It doesn't mean a video is going to go viral, but if every single video gets 25% more views than usual, that has a domino effect, and it snowballs, and that's how the channel gets to be in a healthier position than it is right now. So that's why I'm so grateful for all of your support and seeing that, and seeing YouTube recognize that as well with the analytics. It's very, very I guess filling me with a little bit of hope. Because it's hard because I've talked many times about how it's tough on YouTube these days, and I don't know how much longer it'll last for me, but I'm just thankful that there might be some life left in this channel still. We'll see what happens. But so thank you all so much, and thank you, Darnell, once again. And let me see here. Amarian says, thank you. You remember me in the Hellcat obsession. Of course, that's one of the other nice perks of, this channel being on the smaller side, is being able to read comments, respond to comments, and do these live streams, and being able to keep track of all the comments here without, I see some of the other live streams from these huge YouTubers, and it's like they can't even recognize all the super chats because it's just everything's coming in so fast, and they just kind of ignore most people, which is sad. I love that we're actually able to, most of the time get to most of the questions. I know like Wednesday we weren't able to get to all the non-member ones there because we just ran out of time, but I love that I'm able to answer a large majority of your questions and actually interact with you guys, because I do care about you guys, and I really do just value these connections that we've made here over the lives. And it's I'm very humbled that you guys choose to hang out here, and spend your evenings sometimes stopping by. It really means a lot. And let me see. So Raphael says, I remember turning 19. The 300 had just stood against the Persians. Greece was still a power. Am I old? Yes, that sounds like you are. You are eternal at that point. You're immortal. And Kyle says, hey, Matt, just a thought, but it would be great if Chevy brought back a Z24 with the tracks. Give it a manual with the 1.5. It'll never happen, but I miss fun, affordable cars. Yeah, it'd be fun to see the Z24 trim return to some other stuff. And yeah, I mean, the manual is definitely kind of a pipe dream, but there's nothing stopping them from turning up the boost on the tracks or on anything else, especially the turbo stuff. It's so easy to do. So it'd be fun to see. I think it all comes down to just demand, though, and is there any interest in like subcompacts. We don't see really any performance variants. Now, maybe someone could change that, and maybe the first one to do it will set something off. But I'm sure companies have looked into it. You haven't really seen too much. Again, Kona N was really the only one. And that was pretty short lived. And I mean, I think it sold well. I think that was more of a Hyundai thing, more so than like a consumer demand thing. But it's just not a very popular idea for some reason. I wish it would be, because I think there's absolutely room for it. And we're starting to see, even with the regular compact stuff, compact crossovers, you never really saw performance stuff typically. And now we have the GR Sport version of RAV4, not a full-blown GR, but we're starting to play with that idea at Toyota, and again, I won't say anything more, because you'll see my full review of GR Sport RAV4 on Wednesday morning. But it's encouraging that companies are going there and dabbling in that. Sales will ultimately decide whether or not that is something worth continuing. But I love that Toyota's, trying this. And, again, you'll see, what the results of that are on Wednesday. But, it's very encouraging that they're thinking about performance at all in that segment, And Theodore says, why do cars look so much better in person than on TV and magazines? It's crazy. Like the new Z06, it looks amazing. I think it comes down to 3 dimensions, and truly seeing something in 3 dimensions is really what helps. And I think that's really the bottom line. I think also, seeing it in like daylight, seeing it, cameras are still, they're very good these days, obviously, but I still think that, they still can't quite match the human eye as far as the vibrance of some colors. Sometimes it's either too vibrant or, but just something about, I guess, just really the 3 dimensions is really what helps it to pop better. And there's lots of times where I'm filming a car and I'm like, this doesn't look as good as it does to my eyes right now as I'm filming it, but it's just one of those things that's tough to convey on 2 dimensions. Let me see. So Luke says the only true maintenance my brother did was control arms, CV axles, and I think shocks all around. That's not bad for 168,000 miles or whatever. That's really good. Yeah, I'm impressed. The original motor and all that. That's awesome. That's really cool. So good on that little Elantra. I'm sure he was sad to see it go. And Lantern Tail says, what kind of vehicle segments do you think could be more popular with an EV platform rather than a gas platform? I mean, it seems like we've got pretty much everything covered, at this point. So I think every segment has an EV variant, basically. I don't know about more popular. I think, like I've said in the past, like, one of the best improvements where you are, going to an electric version of something is companies that just can't get powertrain development well. Like this is one of the things I frequently complain about, Volkswagen Group stuff. Some of the Volkswagen, some of the Audis just have terrible throttle tuning, and it's just like an on-off switch, and it drives me crazy. The electric stuff doesn't have that issue because there's no transmission thinking period, there's no turbo lag, whatever it is, it's causing the $1 million question that Volkswagen's finest can't figure out. They don't have that issue with electric. So I think like right now, if we're talking, for me, it's more brand specific than it is segment specific. But like for me, I don't love most of there's some fun gas stuff for sure. Don't get me wrong. I mean, especially Audi is all the RS. You just saw me, glowing about RS3. There are certainly the RS models seem to have a whole different engineering team. Same with Porsche and stuff where there isn't any of that annoying throttle delay. But if we're talking about like regular Volkswagens or regular Audis that often do annoy me with throttle tuning, like electric Volkswagens are great with that. Electric Audis are great with that. And that's especially if you're talking about performance, truly talking about performance, and that your interest is going fast in a straight line, and that it comes above all else. Like, I reviewed both SQ5 and I've reviewed SQ6 e-tron. Between those two, the more dynamic performance car, hands down, is the SQ6 e-tron. It's way faster. Again, there's no delay, which I did have a little bit of in the SQ5. Now, obviously, SQ5 sounds better. But, it comes down to the individual as far as what is a better experience for you. Personally, I would trade, I don't want the aggravation every day. Like, I got enough stressful things in my life. If I got to be pissed off at my car every time I go to hit the gas, or I'm worried about pulling out of an intersection fast enough because the car is not responding quickly, I would trade sound for response and drivability. And I mean, there's still some cool sounds, and I'm obviously more warmed up to the EV thing than many of you are, and a lot of enthusiasts are, and that's okay. But like for me, like it's no question, I'd rather take SQ6 e-tron over SQ5 all day, every day. Now, obviously, there's a price difference, other things to consider as well. But I think there's things like that where it's really annoying. Now, other flip side, I think Mercedes doesn't do very good brake tuning right now in their EVs, and it's kind of annoyed me with that. So in Mercedes' instance, I would much rather have the gas Mercedes over the electric ones, because I think they're just not doing a very well calibrated electric system. So that's where I think it really comes down to the brand, and everyone's going to figure it out, but it seems like, especially when the gas stuff is bad, like there's no excuse for that. We've been, Audi and Volkswagen have been engineering gas stuff for 100 years, 100 plus years. Like, you need to be able to understand like how this works and how this stuff ever got out of, the development cycle. And every engineer and every executive that test drove that said, yep, that's a green light. That's good. That's great. Thumbs up, high fives all around. Let's ship it. Like, and I told Audi this to their face whenever I was on the Q5 launch, and amazingly, they still like me enough to invite me back for stuff, which also shows the kind of company that they are. They can take criticism, even blunt criticism from someone like me, and still, be open to hearing more from me. That's the sign of a quality company that can, that is actually interested in improving, and doesn't just want to have an echo chamber of, ego stroking. So, I mean, that's one thing. That's one of the reasons why I really love Audi as a company right now. They're doing some really pioneering stuff. I love that they're not backing down really on the EV stuff. They're going to have a nice mix, and that's great. Of gas and plug-in hybrids and stuff too. But I think we're doing some really good stuff there. But anyway, so a little bit of a roundabout answer, but it really comes down to the brands. And there's other brands where I'd say both are mostly equal, where they do good electric stuff and good gas stuff. So there's less of an edge there, but especially those are the two brands that really stand out to me. Nissan's also was a little weird with the Aria brake tuning. So I'd say I'd give Nissan a little bit more time. I'm going to be seeing how Leaf does. I hope that Leaf drives great. But Nissan's gas stuff these days is actually totally fine, because they've refined the CVT. It's a new CVT compared to the old one that's, that everyone loves to hate. It's all new stuff now. And so I think like Nissan does better gas than electric from my early experience. But yeah, it's a good question. Thanks for asking, Lantern. And I see we had a few super chats here come in, I think. So Isaac, thank you so much for a super chat. I really appreciate that, and happy to see you in here. Hope you're doing well. He just says happy Sunday, Matt. Thanks so much for the generosity, Isaac, and hope you're doing well too. Two, thanks for stopping by. I haven't seen two in a while, so happy to see some old faces stopping back in here. So two, he's been a member for 40 months now, by the way. Thank you so much too for all the support over 3 years now. One of the longest running members here. Thanks so much. So Christ, why am I still in this basement? 40 months down, so many months to go. Bring back the weekly crack supply. I mean, updates. Yeah, updates. Yeah, I know everyone misses the weekly updates. It's just something I'm not able to do anymore. I wish I could, but thanks so much to that. I hope you're doing well. And I mean, I'm not ruling out bringing back the updates someday, but especially with the lack of freedom of speech right now with the news and stuff, I definitely wouldn't want to be putting myself in a position where I have to be criticizing tariffs and things like that every week. And and that's what I'd be doing a lot of still, because we're going to see more of that coming into effect here. And we're seeing this with pricing of some of these vehicles and stuff, and it just, people don't want to hear it. And I think that's why I'm much happier doing the articles. I'm much happier doing the Junkyard channel now, because people are not excited for the future of cars in many ways. And so reporting on it just, it was a dead end, I think. I really think, for maybe others it works, but for me, it seemed like it wasn't going to be improving. And we're never going to go back to, 2015 when everything was better for everyone, so it's a lost cause, unfortunately, I think. But Sean, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, "Hey Matt, what's the plan for Halloween? What's the kid dressing as? Are you? My daughter is going to be a vampire. I'm hoping to be Wolverine. That's awesome. So my daughter's super into the Super Kitties, which is a Disney Plus show right now. So she's going to be one of the Super Kitties there. I think there's 4 of them, and so I think she wants Beth and I to also dress up as some of them. But we're not getting crazy with costumes or anything. We're just gonna basically be wearing their colors, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, hope you guys have a fun Halloween though. It's such a fun time of year. We just did at our local zoo today. They have a zoo boo thing where you dress up in your costume and go get candy and see all the zoo animals and stuff. So that was fun. But it's so fun. I'm loving the dad life and all the fun kid stuff. It's great. But yeah, we'll just be trick or treating around the neighborhood here with all the neighborhood friends and family and all that. And so it'll be good. So I hope you have a great one, Sean. And 2, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, "Can you do news shorts?" I mean, there's nothing stopping me aside from just the time commitment of it. With the news, I always want to be very well researched, and I could do knee jerk kind of reaction stuff. That'd be something I'm monitoring how shorts do on the junkyard channel, because I am doing regular junkyard shorts, because with those I can only do one long video like every 2 weeks, just because of, again, my schedule and stuff. So I've been kind of bridging the gap with shorts, and I'm trying to use that as a front runner to see if there is a way forward for me to actually be profitable doing shorts, because I don't like doing content for free. I'm too busy to just be doing stuff for free. But yeah, if I see an article and I just pick up my phone and just hit record and just spout off for a minute about my thoughts on something and throw it up, I could do that. And maybe that would generate some interest on the channel. Again, I guess if it's something that doesn't get me in trouble with the thought police, then I could. But yeah, I mean, I think there's also there's a lot of people already doing good content in that way. I know you guys like hearing my thoughts on it, and I think these live streams are a good way to talk about a lot of that stuff too. But I know, again, a lot of people can't watch these live streams, or they can't sift through a 2-hour thing, and so the shorts make sense. I mean, it's a good idea too. And yeah, there's other channel ideas and other things that are still sitting in my back pocket that I could do. It's just a matter of, again, having free time. But that is a very low effort kind of thing that I could do. The thing that's tricky about shorts still, even these days too, is how it messes with the algorithm. Now it is a separate algorithm, YouTube has claimed, so it shouldn't super affect the long form stuff, but it is something where you have to be careful about the subscribers that you're cultivating, because that's where you get yourself into trouble. Is if I have hot takes on car news and someone says, "Oh, this guy is great, I'm going to subscribe to this person," and then YouTube starts serving them up car reviews, and then those car reviews don't get watched by them because they're like, "Oh, I only subscribe to hear his hot takes on news," then that's another person who has said no to a recommendation on a long form video, which then can kill the long form. And then I'm a viral sensation on shorts, but then I'm making, $30 for every million views or whatever insane, stupid pay you get for shorts, then I'm cannibalizing the thing that's actually, feeding the family. And so that's where, again, it's a very delicate tightrope walk of what is, going to actually help. So I think the idea that I've been kicking around is, if I were to do something like that, or do any kind of shorts on a regular basis and not just a random little thing that plugs a review, which is kind of how I've been doing shorts, recently. If it's not directed at driving traffic to reviews, then it would have to be a separate channel. And I mean, this is something a lot of other channels are doing, where they're splitting off into 5 different channels for the various different things they're doing. And I could see, potentially just doing a shorts only hot take kind of channel. And so that's something I have considered. It's just, again, trying to keep up with everything else. I'm working until midnight every single night. Aside from Saturdays, I still save Saturday nights for hanging out and kind of giving myself a break and, spending time with Beth and all that. But like, I'm working till midnight every single night, and I still sometimes don't have enough time in the day to like do everything I need to do for this channel, for the Car Buzz articles, for the Junkyard channel. It's a lot. So that's really, even if it's just a minute long thing, it's mostly just setting up, the new channel. It needs a new email address. It needs, all the other stuff you got to go through. And also monetizing a shorts channel is very hard. I think you need 10 million shorts views to even get monetization on at all. And then once you get the monetization, you're talking. So basically I'd be working for free with those. And if it's not on the current channel and it's not pointing any traffic or giving me any kind of bump there, or any negative, there's all these complicated factors. So, this is why I'm also thinking outside of YouTube. And, if you've seen, I don't know how many of you are on TikTok, because Instagram doesn't pay. So I'm just like completely disregarding Instagram. I don't care about it at all anymore. But with TikTok, they do pay, and they're starting to pay better, supposedly. I'm still not monetized on TikTok, but if I can get the Junkyard stuff to do okay on TikTok, because I do post the shorts on there, and if I can see a little bit of promise with that, I could see maybe doing only a TikTok exclusive news hot takes. Again, I don't know how many of you are on there. I don't know if I really condone going on another social platform if you don't need to, but I'm thinking maybe something like that, may be a way forward, and also kind of diversifying me off of YouTube a little bit as far as revenue streams. So again, thinking out loud here, but these are all the kind of things I've been kicking around. But yeah, I know, I think the message that I take away from your comment too and others is definitely that people really do miss my commentary on news, and I'm honored and I'm very humbled that you guys do miss it. And I have been thinking of ways to keep it going in some way, because again, I don't think I can keep it going or ever bring it back in the exact form it used to be in. It just was too much work to compile everything, to script it out, to edit it, and then try and compete with, again, these random podcasts that are just spewing nonsense for an hour straight, or people that are just reporting on BS speculation and just clickbait bullcrap. I mean, it's just, YouTube's just turning into the National Enquirer as far as car news goes, and many other other news and other content forms as well. But so it's just it just wasn't valued. That's clearly was shown in the views. It just was not straightforward car news with integrity and non-sensationalism. It just wasn't valued, and it never will be. That's certainly not going to get any better. So it sucks. I mean, I would just recommend, again, become a reader. I've enjoyed Car Buzzes. Obviously I contribute to them, so bias, their disclosure, whatever. But Car Buzz, I think, especially because we've seen like Motor One's gone really AI heavy, auto blogs falling apart. All of my previous news sources for a lot of my stories they've kind of all gone to the wayside. All Car News still does pretty good coverage on Instagram, but they don't cover everything. And so I think Car Buzz, honestly, like, just scroll through Car Buzz, whenever you feel like it, and get caught up. They have a whole news subsection, and you can kind of just get nicely caught up there. And they still do, again, stuff with integrity, well-researched stuff. It's real humans that are writing these articles. All of it is all human generated, and, vetted and edited and, all that. So I know, again, a lot of people don't like reading. I get it. But like, I think really that's going to be probably your best bet if you were trying to stay up to date on car news from a reliable source, because they'll sift through the BS and they'll sift through the stuff that isn't newsworthy, and give you the stuff that hopefully is worth paying attention to. So, but thank you all so much again for the support. And I mean, maybe someday again, if we're in a culture where people are excited about car news again, and I'm free to speak freely again, and you know, so sometime several years from now, it's a possibility. I think there could be a chance to revive it as a new channel. That's the one thing I didn't try. It might have worked, but I've seen all these other people that have started new channels that are the same as the old one. They're just transporting content over, and it has mixed results. Typically, the first video or two does super well, and then it usually drops off to about what it was before. But you know, maybe someday is, I guess, never say never. And I'd love to work it in some way that doesn't hurt this channel. But yeah, it's just, I wish I knew. I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I knew whether it definitely would hurt or would help this channel, or would be worth doing on another channel. It's really hard to say. But thank you again so much too for the super chat. Okay, Spaces, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I really appreciate that. And thanks so much for your generosity. And Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, there's room for all of us. Have companies keep limited gas cars, but push forward with electric. We all win for as long as possible. Absolutely. I think there's the power of choice. Like I've said many times before, this is why I love Toyota and others. You can have progress and still give people choice. It doesn't have to be, an ultimatum. And I totally agree with that. And, I'm very excited about how just Toyota, you'll see the fuel economy ratings here this week for RAV4. I'm not going to speak on that specifically, but, the fact they've gone all hybrid on a vehicle that sells almost 500,000 vehicles a year, the top selling thing in America is now going to be only hybrid or plug-in hybrid if you want. But like that, I mean, I did an article on CarBuzz about this. The drastic amount of reduction in emissions just from, even if we were just doing old RAV4 MPG, and not even talking about the new RAV4 MPG, but like, that's I mean, it's like over, I think it's a couple of days of gas usage just completely wiped out for the entire country, but basically that you're cutting out just by hybridizing those RAV4s brand new for people buying brand new 2026 RAV4s. I mean, that's progress, and that's, so I mean that there's those types of things that I agree. I totally agree with you, Raphael. And yeah, I think every option should be explored, and we should, just be still trying to make progress, instead of, shipping it off for our kids or our grandkids to worry about whenever, Miami's underwater and, and there's more and more drastic weather to the point that it becomes deadlier and deadlier. It's just, to me, we can't afford to do that. As fun as it is to, burn crazy amounts of gas, like, just to me, it's not worth the trade-off. But in limited quantities, again, if we have the special cars or we have our fun weekend cars, or things like that, I think that's great. Obviously my dream car wish list is still a bunch of V12 powered stuff, but I wouldn't be putting 100,000 miles on them. I'd be enjoying them in limited quantities and, limited amounts, and having that fun. But, also recognizing that, hey, like I don't need to be doing these boring commuting miles in something getting 10 miles per gallon. So anyway, off the tangent, but thank you all so much, Raphael, for the super chat there. And Raphael says, with that, give me my NAV8 and let someone else have a full electric. Fair enough. As long as we can keep that going. But I don't, again, that can't last forever, in my opinion. But let me see. Getting back to the other member questions here. Where were we? Get a drink here. So Chad says that 18-year-old that works for me is finishing up mods on his truck. He often gives rides to people that need it. He was telling someone he wanted to paint it yellow, and a guy told him no one would fit in. So I don't know if I get the joke, but that's cool that he's giving people rides, though. That's very admirable. Yeah, it's I kind of wonder if there's some way that Uber could kind of give back and all these giant corporations and give people that need free rides some free rides every once in a while. Hopefully, maybe that's something we'll get closer to with all the autonomous, Waymo stuff someday. Who knows? Because transportation is still one of the biggest barriers economically for people. And Oh, sorry, Chad had another. He said, no one would fit. Get in. He said, then don't. It's my truck. I gave him a fist bump and told him I was proud of him for learning DIY. Nice. Well, yeah, it's great to be fixing up your stuff. It's a good skill to have for sure. And Luke says, spending the night in Baltimore, the exit before the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. Wow, that's crazy. Well, enjoy your time in Baltimore. Baltimore, I know, has some rough parts, but there's also a lot of great stuff. I've always enjoyed my times in Baltimore. The one time we were there, actually for Hyundai Kona launch, was in Baltimore, and we were staying right on like the one bay area there, and like I opened up my hotel window, drapes, and like looking out into the water. It was really, really cool. But yeah, Baltimore's got some cool spots to it. So hope you enjoy it there. And TFI says, not going to lie, car meet with candy sounds awesome. I'd love to do a truck or treat in my area. But we have walkable cities. Well, walkable city is amazing as well. But yeah, truck or treats are a fun time. I see Darnell saying that the stream is good for him, so I guess it is something just with Danny's connection as far as his inability to watch the stream smoothly here. So I apologize for that, Danny, but hope the internet gets better where you are or whatever here soon. And Jay, thanks for stopping by. Says, hey, Matt, replied back to you on Facebook. Sorry for the late reply, but glad to be here also. Well, yeah, thanks for stopping by, Jay. And yeah, stay tuned, everyone, for Jay will be the member car of the week tomorrow, and you'll see his very nice STI that he's got there. So thanks for stopping by, Jay, and thanks for sending in your car too. And anyone else is a member, by the way, always send me either message on Facebook, Instagram, email, whatever. All the stuff's in the description. They're all my contact info. If you want to submit your car for member car of the week, if you haven't already, or if you've done some stuff that's something new you want to share, feel free to share. It's always fun to share the member car of the week there as a member exclusive thing. So yeah, thanks so much for that, Jay. And I see, yeah, Luke has 0 issues with the live too, so that's good. And Lantern as well. Thanks for the feedback, guys. And Theodore says he showers twice a day. Feels gross not to. Yeah, everyone's different. Totally get it. And Bob, thanks for stopping by. So it's been a while since I've clicked in. Well, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoy it here tonight. And thanks for hanging around the channel here still. And Luke says, my favorite cologne is the Duluth Trading Date Night. Interesting. I've never smelled that one. And Jazz says, follow up, Lexus sold 2,163 LS500s in 2024 and 894 so far in 2025. Wow, so they've really dropped off. That's crazy, but honestly, that's more than I thought they sold. So not too bad. So I guess in that case, the final 250 should go pretty easily then, right? So thanks for the info, Jazz. I appreciate it. And B. Mitchell, thanks for stopping by. He says, late getting in from an auction in Branson, Missouri. Now I can kick back with the Yingling Tall Boy and gnawing on a Bucky's barbecue brisket. Oh, very nice. Sounds tasty. I love myself some barbecue. Hope you had a great time with the auction there, B. Mitchell. And Lantern Tail says, because EVs are much cheaper to build and maintain, could you see the return of coupes and other body types? Gotcha. You would like to think so, because it could just be a Lego car thing, but no one else really seems to be interested in doing that. I thought that, the Hyundai Envision 74 was maybe a precursor for a coupe EV based, basically just take that body style, throw the rear wing off, and have a coupe cool hatchback. It looks like an old 240SX kind of thing, and just use the basis of Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6. Like, that's Lego car, like super easy to do, like not hard. And they've chosen not to, which is surprising because Hyundai is usually pretty cool about stuff like that. And instead, like they're, adamant on this Envision 74 being some part hydrogen, part electric thing that's, 750 horsepower. They're only making a few of them, supposedly, according to the rumors. And they're going to be, $300,000, whatever, which is a complete missed opportunity. Because I know, again, maybe it wouldn't do well because I thought Charger EV was cool, and no one likes those, so I don't know. But I think if you take Envision 74, tone it down for production, and then you have a great lift back coupe like that, I think it would have been awesome. But they don't seem interested in doing it. And especially after the failure of the Charger Daytona, you're not going to see Chevy try it. You're not going to see Ford try it for a long time. I mean, again, eventually they'll all have to go electric, but in the meantime, don't expect it in the next 5 or 10 years. And I think that's, I'll be short with this, but I think that's the other heartbreaking thing about Charger Daytona is I think, car companies pay attention to other car companies. And when they see something fail spectacularly, they take note to never try that most of the time and not repeat someone else's mistake. And I think if Charger had done better, you would have seen more electric coupes and more enthusiast EVs like that. Obviously, some other enthusiast EVs have done well and are critically acclaimed, and people seem to be pretty happy with them, like Ioniq 5N. But, I think Charger was the front runner, and it clearly didn't pay off, at least for now. I think that's why, the second that was, pretty confirmed to be a failure, like that's the second that Jim Farley came out at Ford and was like, oh, we're never doing an electric Mustang, completely ignoring the Mach-E and them jumping up and down for the past 5 years saying that's a Mustang. But, to me, that's the thing that's kind of a bummer is, it kind of, the Charger EV democratized the electric sports car, brought it down from the Rimax and stuff to the regular stuff. And there's, it just fell on deaf ears for now. So I think for that reason, because everyone rejected Charger, you won't see anything like that, even if it is easy to do it. I think maybe Hyundai, that could be part of, their decision-making as well. But I think, you're not going to see fun body types because people that buy those fun body types only want gas, it seems. And so as a result, we're not going to see that. Again, very, very few people are probably asking for that. I'm right there with you, Lantern Tales. I'd love to see it too, but it's me, you, and probably 5 other people, unfortunately. So maybe someday, that'll become something that more people are interested in. But for now, sadly, not the case. I see Theodore says, you're amazing, Matt. The best of all. I appreciate that, Theodore. Thanks so much for the support. Lancelot says, sadly, I can't use cologne or aftershave. The scents drive me nuts. I can understand that. I know I think that was kind of why I quit wearing cologne. I used to wear it pretty regularly, but then, it just kind of seemed like there was a culture shift in the past decade or so that, some people were kind of annoyed by it or, just some people are more sensitive to that and just seemed like something that wasn't as popular as it used to be. I don't know about you guys, but I remember, the 2000s and even, early 2010s, like cologne was a very common thing. And now it just doesn't seem like even on others, I don't really smell it on other people hardly ever personally, at least, the circles I'm in, whether it's the automotive journalists and executives at car companies, I don't ever smell anything on anyone. I mean, I'm not getting super close to all these people, but usually, you could catch a whiff of it if someone's walking by or something. I never smell cologne or even perfume for that matter, honestly. Hardly ever really. Maybe you guys have a different experience, but yeah, I don't really encounter it a whole lot. And Fuchs says, back in high school, we were dumb and had a bet to see who would go longest without a shower, and I lost after day 10. That's why none of us had girlfriends, and I was the first one at 21. Guess I won that round. Yes, I think you won in the end there, Fuchs. Kudos to you for making the right choice and showering. But that's funny. Good times. And Luke says, I usually put a list of YouTube videos in my watch later list and listen to them as I go down the road. So YouTube probably loves me. That's awesome. That's a good way to do it for sure. And that certainly helps. If that's something, especially with YouTube Premium, you can listen to it, in the background there, and you don't have to mess with your phone. That's great. That's awesome. And Chad says, driving to work on the interstate, tons of construction. A few of us were slightly speeding. It's a 4 lanes and 2 cars in the far left realized they were going to miss their exit, so completely stopped. That's crazy. Man. He says a bad driver never misses their exit. That's true. They often don't. And Josh says, thanks so much, Josh, for stopping by. He says, hey, Matt, saw I got gifted another membership from Lanswath and wanted to say thanks to him. Love the vids. Keep up the awesome work. Thanks so much, Josh, for stopping by. I appreciate it. And thanks again, Lanswath, yeah, for that generosity. And Lantern Tail says, did you read about all the car news we talked about during the Wednesday live stream? What are your thoughts on them? Yeah, so we talked about the Subaru teaser for the STI, right? And then what was the other thing? I did go back and read the Carbuzz articles and their coverage on that stuff. I can't remember what the other one was off the top of my head. Remind me here. I'll try and scroll down to the comments and get to that later. But as far as the Subaru thing, I mean, so it sounds like, so what, there's the one, it's called the B Performance, which looks, most people are assuming that's going to be a sportier Lavorg, which means we'll miss out on the fun. Although there's still rumors that Subaru will bring a WRX wagon, the Lavorg, to the States here someday. It would certainly help with the quickly dropping sales of WRX. I don't know, but so it sounds like that was, not going to be for us. It'd be still cool to see some kind of STI wagon, but nothing too exciting for Americans. The other one though is the E Performance, which is very interesting. That is what they're choosing to show. That to me, that is very telling. I think what that car is, again, if you look back at whenever they announced the cancellation of the STI, for this last generation, they said this isn't the end of the chapter, and there's going to be an electrified thing for the next generation. I think is actually what they said. I'm paraphrasing and poorly paraphrasing, but something to the gist was that there will be a next generation STI after this current generation WRX, and it will be electric, was kind of thing. Again, this was a press release they put out back in 2022 or whatever it was. Obviously, the sentiment has changed on EVs, but clearly it hasn't changed at Subaru because we have this e-performance thing. I think that will actually be a proper concept of what we will be getting for a new STI that will finally come in 2028 is, I think, the rumored time frame. Now, that could have changed, but that tells me that they are still sticking to their guns on that, and they are still going to make STI EV, which, again, surprising if you look at Charger and stuff, but maybe they see what Ioniq 5N's doing, and they want to just kind of do that. And I would like to think that an STI buyer, especially someone that's got the money for a brand new STI, talking 50 to 60 grand, that buyer might be a little more open-minded than the average Mopar fan, but I think that's surprising though, because I really thought, again, if we're talking cheap phoned in ways to do things, they could have very easily just turned up the wick on the current WRX, thrown a wing on the back and called it a day and raked in the cash. And they still could do that, but the fact that they're not showing anything in Japan, and the thing that they're choosing to show to the world and the biggest show of the year for them is an electric STI prototype, that tells me that they are absolutely committed to this, even with the changing winds, because again, they're a global company and they understand it doesn't matter what us Americans do, the rest of the world's going to keep proceeding in that direction. But I think I think that's really kind of what you can expect, it sounds like, from Subaru going forward. I mean, obviously we're seeing Uncharted, we're seeing Trail Seeker, we're seeing all this stuff coming online. There's, I think, according to the initial commitments, there's going to be a 3-row coming with a partnership with Toyota and Subaru as well. So there's more to come with this electric rollout, and I don't think they're going to cancel any of this stuff just because of Trump or anything like that. So I think we're going to see just Subaru really go for, again, still the hybrid stuff. We're starting to see that roll out with Forester and Crosstrek and others, I'm sure, in the future. But, again, that choice of, hey, we're going to have EVs of all of our equivalent models pretty much, but still keep the gas with their old names and have new names for the electric, which I think is the smart way to do things instead of trying to cannibalize your sales and combine everything and keeping brand equity. It's like, it's okay to try something new and try a new brand name. And I think Trail Seeker is great. I think Uncharted, seems to be great. And so I think, so I think that's going to be a big upset for a lot of the traditionalists that, again, want STI to be, twin turbo boxer that gets 10 miles per gallon. But I think that I was shocked to see that. I really thought they were going to backpedal on STI. I really, really thought maybe they still will. There's still plenty of time to backpedal, but the fact that that's what they're showing to me is like a huge thing. I read that after you suggested, that, and I was like, wow, like that was the most shocking news story I've read in a little while. Like, holy crap, they're actually still going to do an electric STI. I'm excited for it. Again, especially if they even do a decent knockoff of Ionic 5N, it'll still be very exciting to me. So we'll see how they end up playing that. But I'm excited for that because, again, to me as a reviewer, it's new, it's different, it's exciting, it's something they haven't done before. Let's see how they do it, and all the creativity you can do, again, as seen with Hyundai and others. To me, gets me excited more than just, hey, look, they gave another 30 horsepower to a WX. Hooray! Like, you can do that in the aftermarket. If you want a regular STI, you could build it for a few $1,000s. Throw a wing on the back. You can do the TS. You already got the Brembos. You already got the adaptive suspension. You just do a tune, throw a wing on the back, and you're done. It's basically an STI at this point. So yeah, I'm excited for the next generation and truly progressing on that as well. But anyway, let me see. So where are we here? B. Mitchell says, spots on the trip back. The local Mustang Club was stopped on our tour, where I got fuel in Ankeny, Iowa, mostly Fox bodies, nice. And on I-35 in North Iowa, late 80s Ford Festiva L, pedaling as fast as possible. That's funny. Oh man, that is impressive. He says that is the L is the Autotrans and padded seats. Wow, nice. That's funny. Oh man. Yeah, great spot there. And Lancelot says, I think when I turned 19, King Tut was king of Egypt. Nice. Let me see. Chad says, Juke Senior. There was the Nissan Juke Nismo. Nismo, not Senior. Yeah. Yeah, there was. You're right. As far as getting back to your other conversation about subcompact performance SUVs. Yeah, you're right. I always forget about Juke and Juke Nismo, but you're right. That was actually, that might get credit for the first. And that obviously didn't stick around either, at least not here. I think they might still offer that in Japan. But yeah, I've never driven a Juke Nismo. I actually hear fairly good things about it. There was a Juke that came in at one of the car dealerships I work with a while back, and I was contemplating doing it, but I'm like, it's just a regular one. But if I see a Nismo, I will jump at that because those seem to be pretty rare, and again, people seem to like them. But let me see. Everyone's continuing on with the 19 jokes. TFI says he was selling low quality copper in Mesopotamia. Let me see. Darnell says he's been kind of eyeballing that 5-cylinder Golf that's coming in a year or two. I wouldn't hold your breath for that. I still don't know if Audi's going to let them do that. And, I mean, if you really, really, really need the hatch, okay. But, if you really just want that kind of platform with a 5-cylinder, your best bet's just to get a used RS, RS3. RS3 is fantastic. The last generation was fantastic. They're all fantastic. And you get the 5-cylinder magic for way less than, whatever that special edition Golf's going to cost before markups, which you're definitely assured if that actually does become a thing. So yeah, if you're excited about something like that, and you should be, 5 cylinders are amazing. I love the RS3 to death. Just, go for a nicely used one because they've come down in price pretty nicely. I've even seen, I think this current generation hasn't dipped below 50 yet, but the last gen, which is still the same actual chassis, it's just, the new interior and exterior stuff for the new gen. But, you still get the same core car with the last gen, and those are in the 40s now. I think even some, if they're a little rougher, can be in the 30s. There's no world where it's ever going to be less than that for any kind of 5-cylinder Golf. I mean, Golf R is already 50 grand with a 4-cylinder. So if they did a 5-cylinder Golf, it'd probably be $5 grand less than a new RS3, and that'd be about it. Again, before markup. So, I think you're probably just better off going to the used market if you're excited about that, or just again buy a new RS3 if you can, because they're fantastic. Let me see. Lorenzo says, I'd love to hear your quick thoughts about solid state batteries and EVs. It seems like Mercedes, they were the first to do an actual car on the road with a solid state. There's other companies working on it as well. I think it's very exciting. And I think, we'll see that actually become a reality here. I think Mercedes is targeting low volume production in the late 2020s, but it sounds like everyone else has, still been working slowly on getting progress to the point where, it's mass produced in the early 2030s. Now, since China is already living in the 2030s in the automotive realm as far as EVs, we may see it sooner from them. And, countries that allow Chinese EVs may see it, come before 2030. From them. But I think that, as far as the Western brands go, I think, it'll probably be sometime around then. And I'm very excited for it because then, you get rid of the weight penalty. They're pretty cheap to make, because of the less material intensive, properties of those batteries. And, phenomenal range, 5-minute recharge times. It really will then bring it in parity with gas, especially whenever the cost gets there too. And then there'll be really no good reason aside from sound, but as far as all the other drawbacks won't be a thing. Even if we keep current charging infrastructure as it is, it would be fine for, 500 or 600 mile range EVs that charge in 5 minutes. You would be completely sufficient with even our current infrastructure, which still continues to grow, despite the best efforts to stop it from growing by some. It's still growing. There's still money to be made there. And, so I think it's very exciting, and I think it's definitely going to happen, sometime here in the next few years. And it's been a long time coming for solid state batteries in anything, and I think that's going to be a huge breakthrough for a variety of products. Even for cell phones. I mean, just once we're having widespread solid state for everything, I mean, electric powered, fill in the blank is going to just everything's going to be so much better. Recharging will be an afterthought and not the focus of any of this stuff, and it'll be exciting. Anyway, Strata says, happy Sunday, first day of cold weather here in Texas. Well, I hope you stay warm. We had a nice little bit of a warmer spell here the past few days, but it's going to dip back down into proper fall temperatures here too. We're going to be in, I think, the 50s for the most part here from here on out. And it's fun. It's boost weather if you have the turbo, and I always loved boost weather whenever I had turbos. It was, oh man, nothing like it. You get that extra boost of power. It's great. Chad says, I've seen a lot more advertising for Slate recently. Either there's hope or I slated my algorithm. Well, they did just recently have like a little studio thing, I think, with some journalists, and did do some more interviews and stuff to try and, I guess, reignite some interest there. I don't think there's anything still super close to happening, and I'm not sure why, honestly, they're doing more. I don't think they really revealed too much more info, but, just reminding people, hey, we're still here, and, hopefully they will, continue to work towards actually, putting cars on the road here before too long. And let me see. TFI says he also got some Slate videos. He says they didn't know they were testing it for actual truck duties. I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're trying to have it be pretty legit and be a real workhorse for people who need that. TFI says Tu's becoming a super exec, smoking all that crack. That's funny. Also, Linda, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing well, and thanks for being a member for 38 months now. I really appreciate that. She says, saw 2025 Mustang sales are down. Thoughts as to why? Is it the price, large screen, inability to modify, or something else? So I think that there's, a few things that are going into it. I think the price was a problem, and I think, now it sounds like dealers are dealing more. So I'm optimistic that we are going to see better deals and better sales as a result of those, dealers finally loosening their grip a little bit. I don't think it's the large screen. I think, there's traditionalists like myself and maybe you as well, Linda, that still likes the double hooded dash and, doesn't like all the screens. And there's certainly, I'm sure, a minority of Mustang buyers that are, not excited about that. But I think that it really, was probably price was the biggest problem, because the 2024 Mustang, came out right at the height of the inflation shock that really did, kind of just kill interest in new car purchases and a lot of stuff. And so I think it was kind of just very poorly timed as far as, I mean, they couldn't help it. They didn't know, but it just, not great as far as that. So I think if price is fixed, it'll be fine. And I believe someone has cracked the ECU now. I think you can tune them now, from my understanding. Someone I think clarified that recently, but so I don't think that's a barrier anymore. It could have been, part of the reason for the slower start, but as far as 2025, I think it's been tunable all year, and it still has been down. So I think it's just, again, mostly the price. I think it will get better, but I think um yeah, I think it's just they've also limited their appeal with enthusiasts, I think, getting rid of the manual and the EcoBoost. Um, and even just the way they've kind of packaged some of the stuff on the GT makes it so expensive. And I think also, like I've said many times before, and I think a lot of people agree in the Mustang community, like it's not that different from a chassis standpoint, from a powertrain standpoint. There's not a ton of reason to upgrade. And especially, again, if you're turning people off with the screen, you're turning people off with the price, and everyone is very happy with S550, or if they don't have one already, S550s are very well priced. And if you're price sensitive, especially these days, like I've said ever since S650 came out, I said just buy a used S550. And I still stand by that. And I think that's the right choice for most people. And I think that's eating into sales, I mean, because used sales seem to be pretty strong for S550 still. And I think that's part of why. I think it's a classic example of, if you're, especially with stuff like that, if you're not really wildly changing it, it's hard to get people out of the old car and into the new one, especially when you're talking about a significant price premium. I mean, it looks different. And so for someone who's got to, have everyone see that, oh, hey, look, they have the new Mustang, like, there's some of that, but those people were the early adopters that already have them. So that's, I think, why you see a drop off in 2025, because all those people have already written their blank checks and they're driving around in them. And, the people on the sidelines are just staying on the sidelines, or they're going used. So, but I have heard more and more people are saying, oh, well, now I'm getting good discounts on them. Now they're getting realistic with pricing. And now I'm excited about it. And now it's kind of closing that gap between S550 and S650 as far as, what you can get one for. And, there still obviously is a nice savings for S550, but it's not the, 10 grand plus price difference than it used to be. If you're talking like a really fresh S550 versus an S650, I mean, even like Mach 1 Bullet, those were, 45 grand, and a comparable performance pack level 1 to compete with Bullet would have been, 55 easy. Or you're talking to compete with Mach 1 with the Tremec, you got to go Dark Horse. That's, 60. It's a lot of money. And so I think people are just happy with S550. So I think that's really, to me, that's my speculation. I haven't heard any, authoritative info from Ford or anybody else. I don't think anyone else can really have any other speculation outside of that. But I think, to me, that's really it. Because I think, Mustang was set up to be perfectly positioned with Camaro dropping out, Charger going electric and dropping the V8. Mustang should have had a gigantic sales spike. But I think, again, it's just people are still just burned out on price. And they say, well, I'll just go buy a used, Mopar, Chevy, or Ford and save some money and do all the mods you want and still have a completely fine car, So I see Darnell's also weighing in here. He says people don't buy sports cars these days. There's some of that, but I mean, Mustang, I think, still has the potential to sell well. But you are kind of fighting a headwind there as far as just everyone wanting to be sitting up high and having a rugged vehicle for their imaginary camping and stuff. There's a lot of that too. But I think there is still a decent amount of people that actually do want sports cars. I see Darnell's agreeing about, the used ones there. So Darnell says S650 roof is also like 1 to 2 inches taller by the S550 because race car. Yeah, S650, they did carve out a little bit more headroom. I think it is about an inch. I don't know if it's 2, but if you're on the upper limit as far as headroom goes and you're wearing a helmet or something, S650 could be better for that. But, again, that's a really narrow sliver of buyers, I think, too. And let me see here. So other member questions. Where are we here? So Bob says, "Up! Wow, I remember the good old weekly updates was my daily Friday go-to back in the day." Yeah, it was. I know a lot of people's rituals every Friday or Saturday, and it's a shame it had to end. Um, and ATFI says we have the live chats every or twice every week. Yeah, so that's hopefully a way to kind of discuss that. And I'm always happy to talk about card news with you guys as best as I can. And TFI says I was supposed to pay attention in college. Was watching BRZ weekly updates. Yes, I got put on academic probation. Well, apologies for the distraction there, and hopefully you're still able to do well in college. And yeah, but that's funny. The good old days back when YouTube was easy. And Darnell says, Matt, what's your top 3 Halloween candy? It's a fun question, Darnell. Thanks for asking. So for me, it's got to be the Reese's shapes, the pumpkins and stuff like that. Those are always the Reese's shapes. For some reason, they taste better than regular Reese's to me. So that's always my favorite, ultimate favorite. The other two, I don't know. I'm trying to think, but I can't think of any others that are really jumping out at me. I always love a good fruit snack. That's probably top runner up. I feel like there's one other thing. I mean, I always do appreciate the people that give out like chips and stuff because I don't have a huge sweet tooth. So for me, getting chips and things like that is kind of exciting for me. Our daughter doesn't really love a ton of sweets either. She loves Hershey bars, but beyond that, like the other stuff, she's usually not into. Actually, one of my other favorites. I really like the dark chocolate versions of like Three Musketeers and Milky Ways because I love dark chocolate. So that's probably one of the other top ones. But anyway, so that's how I get experience eating Halloween candy is just the stuff that my daughter doesn't want. Beth and I just kind of go nuts with it, and our daughter's totally fine with that. We're not one of those parents that like eats all the candy secretly. We are totally open and with our transparency with her, and we say, "Hey, do you mind if we have this?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So she's very sweet like that. So we're able to enjoy all the Halloween candy there. And thanks for asking, Darnell. I'm curious what your favorite 3 candies are as well for Halloween. And Sean says our nearby zoo does the same thing, but she's handing out candy this year. Too old to trick or treat. Oh man, well that's crazy. Well, hope she enjoys it in that way as well. That's fun too, seeing everyone else having the fun and spreading joy with candy. And Lantern Tail says, I was thinking of opening up my front trunk on the Model Y and putting candy in it. Would be fun for the kids. Yeah, I think that would be fun. I know that the trunk or treats, the vehicles with trunks are always kind of a fun novelty of like, ooh, like what's this? This is something I'm not expecting, so that's cool. And Lancelot says, I think Zoo Montana used to do a Boo at the Zoo. Yeah, I guess it's a very common thing for everyone to do, but I didn't know Montana had a zoo. That's cool. I'll have to, if I'm ever back in Montana again, I'll have to look that up. And I see Fu agreeing with Raphael and Chad as well. And B. Mitchell said, on the junkyards, do you see any Panther platform Crown Vics? Since they're uber robust and fit underneath a lot of bodywork for retrofits, it seems like they get snatched up before ending up in a yard. Actually, I do see a decent amount of them. So Panther platform, I thought they were all Panther platform. Am I wrong with that? I thought it was basically the same underneath from the end of Crown Vics all the way back to like the early 90s, right? Maybe even late 80s, because Panther goes into the 80s, right? So I mean, if you're talking about that, I'm not misunderstanding you. Yeah, I see a lot of former cop cars, or a lot of them nowadays, they're just like the former, like they were retired cop cars that then turned into like transport vehicles for elderly people and those kinds of other accessibility kind of things. And now they have aged out of that as well. And so I'm seeing a lot of those actually. So in the last junkyard walk, Mitchell, I also saw a Grand Marquis. I don't know if I included it in the junkyard walk. I might have cut that one for time, but saw a Grand Marquis. But I regularly see the Mercury version, the Crown Vics, and even because Lincoln had something on Panther too, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, the town car, right? So I even see some of those from time to time. So yeah, they are definitely in the junkyards, and no one seems to be saving them from what I can see. Because I think there's just so many of them, and all the nice ones have already been snatched up, and the rough ones no one cares about, at least around here. But yeah, if you're looking for parts for those things, come over to these pull apart yards here in Ohio or in Pittsburgh. Yeah, there's usually a decent amount of them. And Raphael said, yeah, okay, we talked about that earlier, the V8s and the electrics. And Luke says, I'm sleeping at my delivery. I enjoy doing that because when my alarm goes off, I'm right where I need to be, and I bypass a lot of the morning commute traffic. I bet that's probably really smart. So I'm guessing you got a sleeper car. I've always wondered what that's like to have, your own little like kind of traveling, kind of bedroom on wheels in a way, which is got to be fun to just like, I'm tired, and literally like roll over into the back cab there and have your own little bed. It always just seemed really fun to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm sure it's less glamorous than it sounds to me, but it's got to be nice to be not having to worry about hotels and all that. Just hop in and go to sleep immediately. And Lantern Tail says, what are the worst era of Mercedes visually? Now, for me, the bubbly looks of the late 90s, early 2000s Mercedes look terrible. My favorite is the mid 2010s Mercedes designs. Worst era. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could group like the CLKs and stuff like that. They kind of had a similar aesthetic like the 996, 911s that everyone, typically used to love to hate. I think these days they're starting to gain an appreciation a lot more than they used to. But yeah, I'd say that like early, to me, the late 90s was okay. Some of the stuff, maybe like late 90s S Class was like kind of meh. I think they still are okay. But yeah, like the early 2000s stuff, I don't hate it though. Honestly, I don't think there's any era of Mercedes that looks terrible to me personally. But I'd say that the least attractive ones of the bunch. I agree. And Taste Bud said, cool car, or saw a cool car with the Instagram handle. She was a cute girl, slid into the DMs, invited her to a car meet. She showed up. Super cool girl. Was a good weekend, fellas. That's awesome. Well, glad it worked out for you. And cool you were able to hang out with a car girl. They seem to be, the rare, elusive, at least back whenever I had my eye out for them back in the day. That was always like the holy grail is if you could hang out with a car girl. As a car guy, it didn't get much better than that, right? So but kudos to you, congrats, and I'm glad that romance hasn't died, right? But let me see. Chad says, I feel a little guilty watching these and don't have much cash, but with the hours I've been working, I'll be back to offering memberships and super chats. Don't feel guilty at all. No, happy just to have you hanging, and thanks for being a member. That's plenty. Please don't ever anyone feel obliged or don't ever feel guilty. I completely agree. I mean, there's a lot of us that are struggling. I mean, this is these are tough times economically for a lot of us, and I completely agree. So these are great for people who have the disposable cash and they're happy to help support. And I'm very thankful for those who do, but please don't ever. That's always been one of the uneasinesses that I've had with any of this stuff, with the memberships or any of that stuff, is like I don't ever want anyone to feel weird about that. If it's something that's at all a stretch or a struggle, please don't ever make things harder on yourself, because again, I can relate to the struggle, and it's not something that's I wish on anyone else, for sure. So please don't ever feel any obligation, for sure. And that's why I really try and do my hardest to answer even the non-member questions, make sure that I'm getting to everybody as best I can, because I don't want to even downgrade the experience for anyone if I don't have to. I mean, sometimes we have to, if time it just kind of gives us those constraints. I always give those members priority, and obviously we highlight the super chats the most. But I definitely don't ever want to have anyone have any bad feelings as a result of that stuff. Okay, Basis says he's not really seeing any of the Panther stuff either. Interesting. Marauders are very rare. I see a Marauder every once in a while. There's someone in my parents' neighborhood that sometimes if I'm visiting them, I'll happen to see that, but that's it. Those are super rare for sure. And let me see. Darnell says, I kind of would like a Mach-E powertrain and a Bronco Sport at 40 grand. Yeah, I agree. I think something like that could do well. Ford doesn't seem to think so, though, for whatever reason. It sounds like they're going to do some type of Maverick style EV with this new thing that's coming that's going to be affordable. And so I would like to think they'd have the good sense of putting a cab on the back of one of those and selling it, but they haven't done that for Maverick yet either. You could kind of argue that Bronco is that. I don't know if I agree though, because Bronco is so much more expensive. But regardless, yeah, I agree. Something like that. The Mach-E platform should have. I don't know what they're doing with that. It's another weird Ford decision that I could go on a tangent about. But like, why we don't have a Lincoln version of Mach-E, I don't know. Why they haven't tried to maximize that platform to a zillion other cars, I don't know. We see this with GM, the Ultium platform. Obviously, there's variations of it, but I mean, I've lost count of how many vehicles are on that platform. I'm going to try and guess. It's probably over a dozen, and that's the smart way to economies of scale and spread out your costs. And Ford's just putting all their eggs in the Mach-E basket. I mean, Lightning, I guess, but that's a completely different platform too. So, it's mystifying, but it sounds like a lot of people don't understand what's going on at Ford right now, and it's an interesting. It's an interesting company from everything I've heard. The morale seems pretty low there, and I don't know. It doesn't seem like, they just there's easy choices here that it just doesn't seem like they're making. I'm sure on the outside looking in, it's easy to be a armchair product planner, but man, yeah, I agree with you, Darnell. And let me see. Lantern Tail says, if companies can't make it, people could get a wrecked EV and put a coupe body on it. Let's bring back coach building. I agree. That would be fun. With modern stuff, it might be a little tricky because, I'm not sure how all that works with wiring harnesses. And there's still some other expensive components. Maybe, I mean, obviously some have done it already. There are coach built EVs. But from a backyard mechanic kind of standpoint, that kind of stuff gets hard, to do. But it also with EVs, oftentimes when they are wrecked, the battery pack is compromised, and that's the whole ball game there. So it's kind of that's the tricky part of it as well as with cars. Sometimes if it gets totaled because the rear end gets hit or something, oh well, the front end's fine, I can pull the engine or whatever, and it's all good. But with batteries being the whole floor pretty much, there's really no impact that would be spared. I mean, sometimes it's a light impact, but then it's probably not being totaled. But if any kind of heavy impact from any direction hits it, you probably got some battery stuff you want to look into. I mean, some battery packs can be okay still, but it's just kind of hard. Now you could pull the motors, obviously that's easy, but then it's trying to again source the batteries that aren't tainted, and that could be kind of hard. So there's probably some extra complications there, but I'd like to see it. And I think once we see widespread EV adoption, and then those things become junkyard vehicles in 25 years or whenever, I think that's when you could kind of see more of that for sure. But I think it's going to be a while before that becomes, and even before we have the technology for again backyard mechanic people to be able to even do that kind of stuff. It really needs to again just be kind of more commonplace and more just easily understood and manageable by an average person to work on and stuff like that. Because right now it's just still kind of tricky. And TFI says Mach-E powertrain swap kit for the old Triton V8 Expedition F-150 would be legendary. That'd be cool. I mean, Ford has dabbled with that at SEMA, where they've taken their EV stuff and thrown it into, I think, like an old F-100. They threw it into, what was the other thing? Like some of these other older vehicles. I can't remember the other ones. But they have, I know they did that with, I can't remember what the F-100 was called. But they did do an electric version of that. And SEMA has been kind of a fun place where they've dabbled with that in the past. I don't expect to see any of that this year or the next 3 years, but that has been something they've played with in the past for sure. And let me see. So other questions here. So Michelle says, what do you think of Century as a brand going above Lexus? In Japan, that's already kind of a thing. But I think outside of Japan, it's not going to work, because above the Lexus level, we're talking very exotic stuff, and when you're talking very exotic stuff, it's very hard to convince people of a new brand. Those people are, dedicated to their Bentleys, their Rolls Royces, that kind of stuff. And it's hard. I mean, even you look at really, big companies that have a lot of money and effort to put behind it, like Mercedes with Maybach. Maybach, they try to do the unique thing and it worked for a while, but really now they're just glorified versions of regular Mercedes. They found a limit and they realized they couldn't push too much further. And, I think this is also going to be very interesting to watch with Jaguar, which, Jaguar's trying to do this push into the exotic realm and trying to be a Bentley competitor. Will that work? I mean, I think they got the styling to make it work, because I think a lot of the people they are targeting, again, low volume, very affluent people who want to stand out from the crowd, those people, if they truly deliver that car like it looks in the prototype form, which I think they will, because we've seen the prototypes out testing and it looks the same. If that comes to production looking like that, I think that will actually work for Jaguar, but you need crazy styling like that to stand out. And would a Century branded thing go Jaguar crazy and do marketing that's that aggressive that pisses off a bunch of people, but is exactly right for the type of people that buy those kinds of vehicles? I don't know if Century could make that leap. Lexus has a very good thing going for themselves, and I think the Toyota knows it. And I think, they understand, people will pay a premium for this Century in Japan, where obviously Toyota is massive and people have a very high respect and also a flexibility and an open-mindedness to what a Toyota can be. But I think, here in America, you don't have that flexibility, and people like their established brands, and that's very important. So I just think it's not worth doing for Century. Toyota's got enough other stuff going on. I don't think it needs to, be a thing for them. I mean, again, I think it works for Japan and they're happy with that. And I think, that's kind of their edge, is they can make an exotic luxury thing by the Japanese for the Japanese. And I think that's, what the appeal is there for those, compared to the Rolls Royces that probably don't fit great on, Japanese streets. Same thing for any of these, giant things. Obviously the Century probably doesn't fit much better, but, having an eye to the unique needs of those markets, I think is what Century is probably very good at, and the others might not be so good at. So I think that's kind of the way to go with that. But it's a fun idea. And I've never been in a Century. I'd love to try one out sometime. It'd be really fun, I'm sure. And HPIL Vids, thanks so much for stopping by. He says, hey man, good to see you, and good to see you're still doing the lives. Absolutely. And thanks so much for continuing to be a member here for over 3 years now. I really appreciate that. Hope you're doing well. And thanks so much for stopping by. And I'm curious, those of you, because there's been multiple people tonight who've stopped by for the first time in a while. And I'm curious if you found the live, if it popped up, if it was a YouTube thing, or if you just decided to stop by. Because I'm wondering if maybe, again, trying to sense any possible momentum on YouTube here. If, subscribers watching the videos longer, I talked about that earlier, if that has helped not only maybe the videos, maybe it's helped the live streams to pop into more recommendations than usual. I don't know. I'm just kind of a little curious. If anyone wants to give any feedback, no worries if not. But I'm thankful for it in whatever way it comes. But thank you so much, HPIL, for stopping by. And Darnell says, big props that you're not a candy corn guy. Yeah, I've never been a candy corn person. I feel like that's a very rare person that's actually liking candy corn. Maybe that's just me, because it seems like it's still, everyone insists on it being everywhere. But I'm like, who is actually enjoying candy corn? Maybe that's feel free to throw tomatoes at the screen if I'm talking nonsense here. But does anyone actually really like candy corn? I don't know. Maybe it's a generational thing too. Maybe it was something that like prior generations liked more. I don't know, but never been a candy corn fan. And I see. Darnell says, yeah, he likes the Midnight Three Musketeers as well. Nice. Yeah, that is good stuff. I'm glad you like them too. And TFI says, my favorite Halloween candy is only sold in Canada. Coffee Crisp, a coffee flavored wafer covered in chocolate. Holy crap, that sounds amazing. Oh, that is right up my alley. Man, another reason to go to Canada now. Is there a brand, or is that the brand? Is it just called Coffee Crisp? Because I need to like take notes here. I need to like I need to have Yuri from the Straight Pipe send me some of that stuff. That's that sounds really good. Thanks for the awareness there. I didn't know that was a thing. Man, someone should do that in America, or maybe we do have sometimes our grocery stores have international like foods. I don't know if that would be high enough on the seller list to warrant an import, especially these days. Probably forget about it these days, but in normal times, so that maybe that was something I could have bought in the international grocery store because man, that sounds delicious. Thanks for letting me know about that, TFI. And Super Steve says, hey Matt, has the current Tahoe's Yukon seats gotten worse than the previous gen? Rented a 25 Tahoe and got very uncomfortable after a while. Have you had any similar experience with them? So I'm trying to think is I don't have a lot of experience with the prior generation. The current generation is fine. GM seats especially in the Chevys are never really that plush in most vehicles. They're always a little firmer. And that's one thing I love about the Cadillacs. And like that's one thing I really like over our Lyriq over the Blazer. The Blazer seats are a little stiff in my opinion. I mean, they're fine. But they just weren't as comfy as the Mach-E seats. And the Lyriq seats are really nice. And basically right up there with Mach-E is being super soft, like Tesla level softness, which is what we were kind of going for even back with the Mach-E. It was just like, we love that softness. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think that just those truck style seats in the Chevys just aren't the best in my opinion. But I don't have a lot of experience in the old ones because usually if I'm in a prior gen Tahoe or Yukon, it's as a shuttle vehicle going from the airport, and they're always, the like kind of base like first trim that has leather, but I mean it's still like not an actual luxurious experience really, but like those are the things where it's very unremarkable and not a super comfortable seat. But yeah, if you rented a 25 and it was uncomfortable, I mean, I've spent a week with this current generation Tahoe. It was back in like 2020 or 2021 or whatever, but like it was fine to me. But over the course of a week, I'm maybe doing 150 miles or so. So probably not as much as you drove. So maybe with more seat time, you probably, experienced that a little bit better than I did. So yeah, it could be worse. Obviously, if it's uncomfortable to you, then absolutely make sure you avoid it like the plague next time. But yeah, it hasn't come up in my recollections of those vehicles as being a standout annoyance. But I've heard that about GM seats from others as well too, though it's not always the best from a comfort standpoint. And Lancelot says, my favorite Halloween candy is a caramel apple pops. Oh yeah, those are fun. Yeah, Beth loves those as well too. And actually my mother-in-law, that's like one of her favorite things are those. Yeah, that's a good one. And TFI says, I haven't met a single person who likes licorice. I think it's been a long time, but I think my mom likes black licorice, if I'm remembering correctly. Because it's been a while since I've talked with her about it. But I think she liked it, but she's the only person I think I've ever met that actually likes it. But yeah, it's just strange things. Again, maybe it's just stuff that older generations enjoyed. But I just feel like I don't know, it's just never tasted good to me either. So you're not alone there, TFI. And B. Mitchell says, I'm dating myself. I think 1950s first for Crown Vics. Lincoln Town Car was also on the Lincoln Town Car was also on the Panther. So 79 Panther went back to. Crazy. So 1950s for the Crown Vics. I thought that was that the Panther platform? I thought that was wasn't the Y block platform different? I could be wrong, but if it goes that far back, that's truly impressive. I didn't think it was that old, but but you're saying Panthers 79 to 2010, but yeah, crazy stuff that lasted that long. And so TFI says he'll send. Darnell says it's one of his favorites, maybe for licorice. I don't know. If that's the case, then yeah, we just set up a PO box, Darnell, and we'll all send you all the licorice that I think everyone else would be happy to discard, and have it go to someone who actually will enjoy it. So let me see. TFI says strangely he loves Star Ains and other licorice flavor ingredients. Interesting. I don't even know what was in licorice. And Lansmoth likes licorice. Okay, cool. I don't care for brown, but I can't stand black licorice. Red for the win. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like Twizzlers are good. I always like the pull and peel Twizzlers, which probably isn't real licorice, really. But yeah, Twizzlers are fine. It's not my favorite, especially these days. I don't know about you guys. Especially as I get older, I'm more paranoid about like losing fillings and teeth and dental issues because I'm lame like that, I suppose. And like licorice is one of those things that really, I'm a little nervous sometimes eating, especially the super chewy licorice. It's like, man, I'm really rolling the dice here. So I try and avoid the really tasking things that really can be doing a number on your teeth. So that's why I'm happier with the chocolate and stuff like that instead. Yeah, I see Darnell. Same. About the Twizzlers and the peely ones. Darnell also says for Halloween candy, worst are peanut but twisties, Mary Jane, Necco wafers, candy corn. Yeah, I've never been into any of that stuff. Darnell says best are Reese's pumpkins, sugar babies, bite-sized Snickers, Musketeers. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had sugar babies. Maybe I'm missing out. I don't recall having that. I gotta, maybe this year I'll try it. Vishal says his top three are Milky Way, Butterfinger, and Reese's Cups. All great choices. TFI says his bottom three are chocolate mints, candy corn, and licorice. Oh man, well yeah, chocolate mint. So that's a York peppermint patties. That's actually one of my favorites. I don't know if that's better than the dark chocolate of the Milky Ways and the Three Musketeers, but that I do love a York peppermint patty. That's good stuff too. Let me see. So TFI says tomorrow's gonna be nothing but sweets. Nice. B Mitchell says talking about Vishal with a century equals Buick in the US and China, no dice. That's true. Yeah, you do have a lot of, especially the older generation remembers Buick Century, so that would be a problem. And yeah, same for China. You're right. And TFI says, I got a recommendation for a 2012 Subaru Forester review by Subaru's fan because I watched it a month ago. Crazy. So that was the first car review I ever did. And I apologize that that was probably very cringy to watch, but thank you for watching it. I'm surprised that YouTube's recommending stuff that old because those videos don't usually get very many views. Like sometimes I'll just for kicks, I'll look back and see like, hey, let's see what this super old video, like how many views has it gotten in the last 48 hours? And a lot of them are completely dead for the most part. But that's funny that, yeah, that was probably such a terrible video. I apologize. But hope you maybe got some info or enjoyed even just a throwback to my less polished days. HPIL says, I'm watching because I received a notification and you can just call me Dom. Okay, sorry. I always forget. Yeah, it's hard to remember all the different usernames and some other people, requested different names as well. But so I'm glad you got the notification though, Dom. I'm glad those continue to work. And that's another thing. YouTube, though, the notifications really made it hard with subscriptions because they really only push stuff if you actually do have the notifications properly set up on your phone, which a lot of people don't. But I'm glad they were working for you there, HPIL or Dom. Sorry. Let me see. TFI says Coffee Crisp is made by Nestle Canada. Also, they make Smarties, a chocolate button covered in different colored shells. American Smarties is branded as Rockets in Canada. Interesting. I didn't know that. That's surprising. So Smarties are essentially M&Ms then. So do you not have M&Ms in Canada? I feel like you must have M&Ms, right? Because what you're describing with a Smartie is exactly an M&M. But it's so fascinating. So he says we do have M&Ms in Canada. So is there a taste difference or is it a size difference between M&Ms and Smarties in Canada? This is enjoyable. I'm expanding hopefully all of our minds here tonight with cultural differences. This is fascinating. So I'm curious, TFI. So Smarties are larger and the shell is crispier. Interesting. That sounds fun. Thanks for letting us know. That's cool. And let me see here. So Sean says he loves candy corn, and I love the candy pumpkins that come out this time of year too. Nice. If you're talking about the Reese's pumpkins, or if there's another candy pumpkin I'm unaware of, I don't know. I don't think I know of any other candy pumpkins. But I'm glad you love candy corn, Sean, and someone's got to keep the candy corn companies in business. So I'm glad you're holding up the fort there for them, and I'm glad you like it. And TFI says candy corn was invented in the 1880s, and quite frankly, should have stayed there. Well, but I'm glad that Sean likes it, and others, that's the great thing about diversity, right? We all can like different things, and as long as it makes business sense to keep it around, we can all continue to enjoy whatever odd things we enjoy, so don't ever want to yuck anyone else's yum. And let me see here. B. Mitchell says 55 to 56 Crown Vic was the top trim for the Ford. Right. Yeah. Just the sedan there that, was, because I remember, the basket handle kind of roof line, on those. Yeah. And TFI says Matt calls you Dom when you're family. Dom is absolutely family. He's been a long time supporter, and sometimes, especially if it's a username I don't see super frequently, it's easy for me to forget. So I apologize, Dom, but thanks so much for all your support. And let me see. Michelle says, just saw an article where the GM president said a family of low-cost EVs are coming in addition to the Bolt. Would they be priced in the $20,000 range? I mean, they must be, because that's really the only way to go. Because Bolt's going to probably be, I'm guessing something either very low 30s or under 20 or under 30. So if they're going to do a family of stuff, then it's going to have to be in the 20s, and that's good. I don't know where that's going to go, because unless Bolt is way cheaper than I'm expecting it to be, I don't know how they go cheaper than Bolt and offer more car, because Bolt, it's pretty small. You don't have a lot of cargo space. And if you were to, for example, add on a truck bed onto the back, like a Maverick kind of thing, to me, that would be more expensive than Bolt. If you were to turn it into a sedan, that would probably make it a little bit longer too, because hatchbacks are usually shorter. To me, that I would assume would be a little more expensive. Maybe it'd be a little cheaper, but there's not a whole lot of bandwidth there. You're talking about razor thin margins. You're talking about, if Bolt had come out being 25 grand or being, super cheap, I'd be like, oh yeah, well, they got a bunch of room. They can have stuff above Bolt, but beneath Equinox EV, but I just don't see, a lot of room there. I mean, obviously, if he's talking about it and he's envisioning that, we'll see how it pans out. Maybe he's just heavily banking on cost parity with gas, and battery cost is really coming down, so he can sell Equinox EV size stuff for, in the 20s, or something, cheaper or lower cost, like the Bolt. I hope they do a bunch of stuff. I mean, all the rumors suggest that stuff's been killed off. I mean, there was strong rumors that, some kind of El Camino thing was coming back, and it was going to be a car looking like an El Camino, basically, have a sedan kind of body shape with a truck bed on the back, which I think would be a fun way to do something without trying to just copy the Maverick homework. You do it the way Chevy has done it. And honestly, they were very successful with El Caminos for a long time. So these days it might be harder to justify, because everyone's going to have this macho complex when they're driving a truck around. But, for the window cleaners, the people who truly just need a truck bed that's longer than Maverick, because you could have something longer. But that was supposedly, that was the thing, is there was, according to the reports, there was people that were in a focus group that saw a 2-door and a 4-door version of this, little Maverick competitor kind of thing, and that there was an electric version, I believe, or it was just going to be electric, which was, I think, what I remember. Again, it's been a couple of years, so I'm foggy on regurgitating the details, but that it had been reported that had been killed off. Maybe they're reviving that stuff, possibly because they're seeing, how successful all the GM EVs truly have been. we'll see if that continues to be the case, without the tax credit. But if they can keep this momentum going, I mean, I think Cadillac's, I thought they said like 40% of their sales are electrified already, which is ahead of schedule. A lot of these companies were saying, oh, maybe we'll have, 50, 75% EV by 2030. And the fact that Cadillac is in 2025 with all the headwinds at 40%, maybe that'll decrease again as things get disincentivized. But, I would like to think that they'll keep that momentum going. And if they do, then, you have, um, just a lot of sales and a lot of, again, spreading out the costs of these platforms. And maybe that could really drive the price of these things down. I don't know, but that's interesting. I'd love to see it. We need the most, regardless of what's, providing the propulsion, we need more cheap cars. So I really hope I'm welcoming anything we can get under $30,000 with open arms. It's going to be very wise, if we are heading into a likely recession. That's what was the huge sellers, in the recession times. Everyone dumped the giant land barges and the gas guzzlers, and they, had a nice little resurgence of the economy cars there for a while. And TFI says, ask Yuri and Jacob to bring chocolates to the next press event. Now that's a good idea. Yes, thank you. I will have to message them because we may end up being on. I should ask. Yeah, we might, because I know now a few of these other programs I have coming up. They might be on one or two of them. So I'm actually going to do that. Thank you for the suggestion, TFI. I'm gonna DM Yuri and say, hey, bring me some of that coffee crisp on the next trip here. That would be awesome. Thanks for the suggestion and for the awareness, TFI. I've learned so much tonight, and I'm eternally grateful. I see we are actually past time by almost 10 minutes. So Taste Bud says good night. Thanks for calling time there on us at Taste Bud. I completely lost track of time. So it's getting to be close to my bedtime as well. So hope you all had a great time here tonight. Thanks so much for stopping by, especially those of you who have stopped by for the first time in a while. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you come back again soon. And have a great week, everyone. Hope it's a safe, happy, healthy one. Enjoy the Halloween season here and all the fun that brings and all the fall colors, the boost weather, whatever you experience in your part of the world. Hope you enjoy it to the max. And stay tuned for lots of RAV4 coverage. I'm going to have 2 videos most likely here on Wednesday on RAV4. It'll be GR Sport and going to do regular XSE, and then probably Woodland probably Thursday or Friday. So all RAV4 this week, you're going to see it from a lot of people. Everyone did a lot of content on those. So if you're not a RAV4 fan, you can check out, go watch old stuff. Stay off YouTube for the week, whatever, because it's going to be Toyota RAV4 week this week from everybody as the embargo drops on Wednesday. So be ready for that. But hopefully it'll be very helpful for those many people that are shopping for RAV4s all the time. But that's what to expect from me this week as well. But stay tuned for lots more good stuff coming here the rest of this month as well. But thank you so much once again for all your support, everyone. I really appreciate it now more than ever. And have a great week. And take care.